quite a few years ago, there was a fellow who came to me, a customer, and he said that he had some 44 mag ammo that needed to be taken down. He just didn't want to deal with it. And then he started telling me some of the story behind it. His shooting buddy, his son, they loaded together. They would go out together. He had passed early unexpectedly, and you could tell the man was just absolutely heartbroken. And I don't generally pry when somebody starts in on something like that. I just kind of let him talk for a little bit, and then I just sort of zip it up. And he asked me to just take it down. It needs to be taken down. No problem. I'll do it. He said, just keep it, take the components, do whatever you want to do with it. I just want to be done with it. No problem. I'll take care of it. Well, when he brought me this ammunition, there were 8 100 count boxes of 44 mag. Now, we didn't get into what it was that was problematic about it, but I thought, no, I'll figure it out. That's no big deal. So I grabbed one, right, put it in my kinetic bullet puller, slip a little collet on there, stick it inside here. This old RCBS kinetic puller, man, this bad boy is old and it is still purring like a kitten. I might just break it with this because you're about to find out why. Typically, if you're going to take down a metallic cartridge with a kinetic bullet puller, 2 firm whacks on the floor and that bullet should come right out. Now these, with this puller, I have industrial carpet on the floor, and underneath that there's a concrete slab. And it works great for pulling bullets with something like this. And if you look at the carpet in front of the bench, it's testament to how many times I hit the floor with it. But I grab one, put it in the collet, and let's just hit this on the floor now. 1, 2, 3. Now I hit that real hard 3 times. So there's a problem right there, huge problem. It is massively overcrimped. And I've pulled a lot of bullets and I've got a pretty good gauge. And I don't know how to quantify that for you. It's a pretty subjective thing. But when I say I'm hitting this thing hard, I mean I'm hitting it hard. And I just, with the few that I pulled, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of an arch that's sort of getting bent up. That's how hard I'm hitting this thing. So I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to dump the projectile and the powder into the pan of the scale here, and I'm going to weigh this. Now there I've got 17.6 grains. The one I pulled just previous to this had 16.4 grains. Now when you are loading for a Magnum cartridge using a typical Magnum powder, H110, 296, 2400, Ramshot Enforcer, IMR 4227, stuff like that, and you look in the reloading manual, you will find that there is always a very narrow window of the minimum powder charge and the maximum powder charge. And the reason for that is the pressures that are safe to get the performance you want out of it is a very narrow window. Some other powders that have traditionally been used for doing a huge variety, regardless of case capacity and how much of that capacity you're taking up with powder, such as Unique, which can be safely reduced, and you've got this much air gap in a case that big, and that's fine. And it has more to do with the burn rate, the burn rate of the powder, the geometry. There's a lot that goes into it. But the problem with reducing one of those Magnum powders, H110, 296, 2400, that type of thing. Well, actually less 2400 than 296 and H110, Ramshot Enforcer and the like, is you can get into unpredictability, excuse me, with regard to the pressures it's going to develop. And when it comes to ammunition, we need to be able to predict each and every time exactly what's going to take place. So if, for example, if you have a window using H110 that says minimum powder charge is 20 grains, maximum is 21.5. You've only got a grain and a half window. You have to stay within that grain and a half window. And the problem that we can get into is with unpredictable pressures. is the difference between a deflagration, a controlled burn, and a detonation, which is an explosion. So I was trying to think of a very basic, simple example of the difference so you can just sort of wrap your head around that. If you have a powder that burns at 1 inch per second under 10,000 psi, we'll call that a deflagration, a controlled burn. A detonation using the same thing is exponentially more, in that, let's say it burns 10 inches instead of 1 inch per second and under 100,000 psi, not 10,000 psi. So instead of getting a controlled burn where you get the powder igniting and pushing the bullet off the barrel, you get bang. That's called a bomb. So what we have here is the potential for a detonation because we've got a significantly reduced powder charge. And I'm guessing it was the powder dispenser was being a little bit wonky or inconsistent with that. And then a massive overcrimp. You stick one of these in a revolver. Now that's not this stuff, but I can just about guarantee that's what's going to happen. Can't say that for certain, but I have good reason to believe I don't want to be anywhere near that vicinity if somebody touches one of these off in a revolver. So the problem that I've identified is massive overcrimping and an undercharged load for something that you cannot reduce the powder charge with. So the fella had brought me 8 100 count boxes of 44 mag, and they look beautiful, by the way. But I'm not going to do a kinetic bullet puller because, frankly, I would be dead or in the hospital before I finished that. It's just no way. Frankfurt Arsenal's got this wall-mounted kinetic thing. You put it in there, you pull a handle, and it slams it down. That actually works pretty slick. They've got this little cup at the bottom. Pull that thing off of there, you can toss that in the trash. But just take a tube and run it down into a 5-gallon bucket. If you're going to use one of those, they work really well. And it's a little bit loud when the springs slam home, but it works terrific. And then if you want, you can run it through a strainer so it captures the projectile in the strainer or colander, whatever you want, and then powder will fall into the bucket. So you're separating the two as you're doing it. But this I am going to pull and take down with, this is the older Lyman All-American turret press, and I'm using the RCBS collet style bullet puller because I can do this at my leisure now. If you're not familiar with the way these things work, there's a collet inside here where you tighten it up on the projectile, and then you lower the ram. And the case with powders down below, the projectile is retained in the collet. You loosen the handle, then the projectile will fall out. So with this, I run this up into here. Now this system I've found generally works better with a rifle than it does handgun because there's more meat you can get purchased on a rifle projectile than a handgun bullet just because of, well, what they are. But you push that up, and I have the press retained, which is just screwed down to a board with a C clamp that is clamped to the top of my bench, which is sufficient for that. And I just simply turn the handle, which is going to now bite the projectile. And when I lower the ram, I don't want to like try and jerk it. These work really well if you just kind of take your time, apply some pressure to it, go a little bit slow, increasing the pressure until it pops. Case comes off. Now the projectile, which is retained here, I loosen the handle and comes right off. So the projectile, I'm not entirely certain what this is. I haven't really bothered to look. It may be a Sierra. It's a 240 grain jacket at that point. Possibly Sierra, I don't know. I'll go back and I'll look through a few of the older books that have pictures so I can identify exactly what it is. But the powder, I can't absolutely identify it and be confident that I know what it is. So powder is going to be either fire starter or fertilizer, probably fertilizer. But I've already done a few of these. The bullets, I'm going to keep them. I think I'm going to reload them. There's a roll that goes into the cannelure, but I think I can reload these because, well, what you can do is grab your calipers, because sometimes somebody will put like a taper crimp on it, and if they crimp it too much with a taper, what happens is you end up swaging the bottom of the projectile down here and reducing the diameter. Now, generally, jacketed 44 caliber bullets are going to be 429, 429 and a half, somewhere in there. Your cast bullets, powder coated bullets, plated bullets, those will generally be your 430s. But just to measure this, yeah, they're 429. And with a roll crimp, all it did was it rolled the mouth of the casing into the cannelure right here. So this can be reloaded, no problem. I am going to have 800 jacketed flat points that I can reuse the powder. I'm going to discard the powder. And then I've got 800 primed 44 mag casings that can be reloaded safely and taken out and shot. But I've already got a few of them underway, and now I've got, roughly almost 800 to do. Thanks for hanging out with me. Happy trails. Now I'm going to need another clamp on there. This thing's sliding around on me now. One isn't going to cut it. But apply even pressure, coming down. Don't jerk it. Go slow. That'll work fine. This is glass with bark over it because it looks cool. That's fine. And then the bullet, drop out. Bullet's fine. See, that one just slipped off. Do it again. Oh, my die is sliding. I got to get out the locker and wrench, tighten that down. It's going to probably slip. Yeah, it's going to keep sliding out. Anyway,